Hey, it's Ken Harbaugh. I am headed off to Ukraine, but I want to tee up our Friday episode of the Ken Harbaugh Show. We're going to make this a regular feature, a weekly roundup of the stories we've covered during the week and commentary from two of my favorite people, Casey and Amanda Weinstein. They are regulars on the MeidasTouch network, and they're going to be in the driver's seat of the Ken Harbaugh Show every Friday. Here's Casey and Amanda from their kitchen with the Ken Harbaugh Show weekly roundup. Welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show, the Friday weekly roundup with Casey and Amanda Weinstein, regulars on the MeidasTouch network. So if you're not familiar with them, you will be over the next few weeks and months and hopefully years. As long as this show lasts, we're going to be doing the weekly roundup on Friday with Casey and Amanda. I'm joined today to kick things off, but Amanda, Casey, it's your show. What do we need to cover?
Well, Amanda came up with this idea because we talk so much each other about current events and what's going on. I'm in politics. She is an economist, but also is involved in politics. And we're both really interested in policy. We're both military veterans. We have kids. We're in the suburbs. I'm
actually in the kitchen right now.
Actually,
a real one, not like a fake Home Depot one.
Right.
That's not a studio. I saw you in the fridge moments ago. You're drinking actual coffee.
No, we started recording and Amanda was like, "No, I need to go get coffee now." So when you need coffee, you need your coffee.
Yeah.
Good. And just a little more background. Casey is a state rep in the Ohio House. Amanda, you're obviously a PhD and an economist and an Air Force Academy grad, but also co-host at the Suburban Women Problem podcast. So couldn't think of two better people to take apart the week's news, especially the ridiculous culture war stuff that we seem to be in the middle of every week in Ohio. What's on the docket for today?
Well, the first thing I saw that Amanda and I started discussing and that we really lived here in our town was an article that caught my eye from Politico about Republicans losing the culture war.
That they started. Let's be real.
Right. That the tables have kind of turned. And, in politics, in my time, I've learned what really matters is who's on offense and who's on defense, who's, ultimately driving the message. And in our town, Hudson, which is a suburb between Cleveland and Akron in Ohio, we've been at the nexus and in a hotbed for these culture wars, whether it be book bans or anti-DEI stuff or anti-woke
We're testing
stuff.
ground.
We are.
They come test stuff here. See how well it's going to do.
And they come test in like your front yard. You've had some of the most vicious book banning anti-Semitic protesters out there, I guess, asking you to do better, but not defining what that is.
I know. That is interesting. Yeah. They could not define how you should do better.
I'm kind of mouthy. Let's be real. A little bit sassy, a little salty, a little mouthy. And they don't like that. Plus, I'm Jewish, and I think that just deeply triggers them. Some of these folks who then took a part of their Sunday to come and block our driveway and
the Lord's Day, Casey.
The Lord's Day. It was a church.
Right.
It was actually a church.
Keep the Sabbath holy and go explain to the Jewish people. I don't know. They took it a very interesting interpretation.
With anti-Semitic flags, too. So
the Republicans are losing the culture wars. Hudson being ground zero. And I'm guessing you're pointing to book bans, the whole persecution of transgender kids. They're kids. Right. What's on the list and how are they failing so badly at driving home their message?
I mean, I think they really miscalculated women in the suburbs here, right? They thought they would come here. And I think even the Fox News pundits would be like, let me tell you, ladies, what's going on in your school. Meanwhile, we have an army of PTO moms here going, I'm pretty sure I can tell you what's going on in my school. But you're not going to tell me what's going on in our schools. And we are a historically red suburb that's bluing that an army of moms stood up and said, no. You're going to get out of our school district. Most of them weren't even from the school district. They came from who knows where to come tell us what to do in our schools. And the moms weren't having it. We don't need book bans. We are asking for other things other than book bans. We are asking to talk about our reading curriculum. And we're asking to talk about what are we doing to account for the fact that we had a pandemic and a lot of our kids are behind now. What are we doing on those things? Nowhere did we ask for book bans. And somehow they thought a bunch of moms, and there were a few, right? There were a few moms in town who were like, yeah, let's get on this. But the majority of moms said, no, get out of our school district. We're not asking for book bans. Our schools are fantastic and we're trying to keep them that way. And it really got shut down when we see extremist candidates running in our school districts. They got shut down and they are so extreme. They are running against Republicans saying, I don't know, they're not the right kind of Republican and not the right kind of Christian, and they're not doing the right kind of book bans, and they're not doing the right kind of culture wars. I don't know. But it didn't work. It just didn't work.
Well, I think in addition to misreading suburban moms, they just misread how deeply popular and beloved our schools and teachers are.
They're like celebrities to our kids.
Yeah.
When they see that, when they see their teacher, they are celebrities in town.
Yeah. So, when they came 2 consecutive elections for our school boards, and by the way, this played out across our county, which is both urban and suburban county that encompasses Akron and a huge portion of the Cleveland suburbs. Just twice now, they've come at an anti-schools, anti-DEI, and all the things, book banning kind of slate, and they just lost overwhelmingly twice. They really misread people's love for
actual parents.
Yeah,
I mean, it worked well, I think, with people who did not have kids in school anymore, who have never had kids in school. Who are not active in their schools, who never talk to their teachers. I don't know. I think it did work well with that crowd of people who don't have kids in schools. They're like, yeah, there are kitty litter boxes inside every classroom. And we were like, no, there's not.
But they also came for our library. That we had a super contentious library board meeting, and their slate lost 3-1. So I don't know exactly.
Well, because they told us, they told us, don't worry if we ban books from your school because you'll be able to get them from your library.
Then they came for the library.
And then they came for the library.
Good point. Yeah.
Like, it's never enough. We hear this on every issue. Like, oh, we're just talking about abortions. And like, oh, you're not. Now you're talking about birth control. And now
IVF.
you're talking about IVF.
Yeah.
And it's never.
They're used to.
You give them an inch.
They're always on offense. But now we've really turned the tables.
But they're out of touch. The problem is, I think, with a new age of social media and people are more connected, of saying, like, this isn't my experience, right? What I'm concerned about is, I don't know, a school shooting that we have to listen to every week that just happened in Georgia because a dad decided he was going to buy his kid a rifle despite his kid making a threat. Like, this is what I'm worried about. And this is actually what our kids are worried about. And if you are asking your kids, hey, what are you worried about? We know there's tons of research out there. Kids are more stressed today than they were for my generation, other previous generations. Kids are more stressed. And when you talk to kids, what are they stressed about? One of them is that they're going to be shot up in their schools and nobody out there cares except their parents. That is stressful. But we don't have a lot of politicians on the right even talking about it. They're saying ignore it. And Trump is one of them. And Vance is one of them.
Poor Ken is never getting a word in. He's never getting a word.
Well, this is what our kitchen table is like.
This is we're constantly.
Talking is a competitive
are other couples
sport.
like this? Like, no. It's hard to get a word into. I mean, then I have 2 daughters. Wait, hold on. I have 2 daughters too.
Were here, we would not get a word.
No, and they're so loud. They're so loud. Our middle child is so loud.
There's only one volume.
Oof. Okay, sorry, Ken.
And then when I get the teacher volume,
this makes my job so much easier.
I know. So just
keep going. I was dreading the first week of school for a lot of reasons. Sending my middle daughter to her first day of high school, and I over the summer had actually forgotten that school shootings are something that happen every week in America, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks that we have to add that to our list of worries now. And I'm hearing from friends in Canada who are like, what the heck are you guys doing? I mean, we have guns up here. We have mental health problems up here. The only thing we don't have up here are Republicans. Maybe that's the difference. Get rid of your Republicans and pass some common sense gun reforms. And maybe you can actually do something about this problem instead of J.D. Vance's prescription, which is, what did he say this week? They're just a fact of life. Or Trump,
it's just a fact
after
of
the
life.
last one. Yeah. Trump said, get over it, right? He said, get over it.
And sadly, we as a country do just move on. It's in the news cycle and then we move on. And then it happens again. And the only thing that keeps us talking about it as a nation is another shooting. And it's just this.
And our young people.
It's like,
I think you tell teenagers to do something and they're not going to do it. Like, they've been told, get over it. And the teenagers affected by these school shootings, they have never gotten over it. Yeah. They are out there actively talking to other young people, talking about their experiences. They are doing bus tours. They are registering to vote. Our young people are not going to get over it. And having an old man like Donald Trump say, get over it, is only going to light a fire under them that says, I'm going to do the exact opposite of get over it. Watch me.
It's just crazy because, Ken, you're same sort of generation as we are, where Columbine happened like junior, senior year of high school for me. And before that, it wasn't like, school shootings weren't, I think, in the national consciousness. Yeah, right. And so this was at the end of my public school, like my time. And, now it's all the time. And it seems like it's getting worse. And by the way, we had another shooting in my district. A young lady in grad school was in a drive-through at a Taco Bell and just was shot dead in a murder-suicide by a man who never should have had access to a gun. And I've got an op-ed that I'm writing in our local paper this week that details all the bills that we've got, in 7 or 8 bills to address this that can't even get a single hearing. So to your point, Ken, if you want to get gun safety reforms, you've got to vote out Republicans. There's not one, it seems, at least in the Ohio legislature, or not more than a handful, I can confidently say, who are willing to put their names behind this and actually go and solve the problem. So you got to vote accordingly.
Yep. I mean, we have that power if we are willing to exercise it. And we know who the bums are, to borrow that old expression, throw the bums out, because they wear AR-15 lapel pins after school shootings. Those are the ones that we gotta. I mean,
these are not the Tim Walz hunters, right? The hunters out there who have a reason to have a gun, a reasonable one for going hunting, like Tim Walz, right? Who are saying, you know what? I am for sensible gun legislation. I am for people being responsible gun owners. Right? The people out there that you see, like in the suburbs, who are pro guns, they're not using those guns for hunting, right? It is pure extremism. And you see, when you get that extremism on something like guns, the people that pay the price are our kids with their lives. And you just see it being completely ignored by the GOP, who claims to be pro-family and pro-life, not caring that the number one killer of children in the U.S. is guns.
That's a good point.
It's not that way in other countries.
It's not pro-family and it is not pro-life.
No.
The number one killer is guns, not cancer, not car accidents, not.
And they act like there's nothing we can do about it.
Not drag queens either. Not books. Books aren't killing kids.
Zero drag queen deaths and zero books. Like the book Mouse did not kill any kids like this last year or so far this school year. But like, oh God, I heard, how do you know school's back in America now? Because school shootings are back. Like, it's just, oh my God, it's brutal. And you just want your kids to feel safe and not worry about this stuff. In fact, I was driving with my kids yesterday, taking them to, their activities, and it was on NPR, the school shooting. And I turned it down because I was like, I don't want this to be in their consciousness that kids are going to school and getting gunned down. And I just want to fix it. I want to fix it. So I'll continue working on it, and maybe one day we can get a bill through the Ohio legislature or some federal legislation that continues to strengthen this, because Biden did get the first.
He got the ball rolling. That's important. That is huge and underappreciated. But also, we have to be clear. This is not just us voting. The Republicans know that on this issue, even on gun control, the majority of Americans, even the majority of Republicans, support common sense gun legislation, right? They know this. So what you have is, in our state, people like Frank LaRose figuring out, how do we get people to not be able to vote? right? How do we take away ballot boxes? How do we really disenfranchise voters? How do we remove them from the voter rolls? Because they know they will lose on this issue like they will lose on every single issue. But they don't want us talking about the issues, right? They want us talking about books and drag queens and basically things that are not everyday issues for Americans and American families.
It's Ken Harbaugh. Quick break here because I have two favors to ask. We're off to a great start with the Ken Harbaugh Show on YouTube, but the podcast needs a little love. Please click the link below to follow, rate, and review. The success of shows like this really does depend on those ratings. And if you haven't yet followed me on Patreon, please check it out. It's free to sign up, or you can pitch in a few bucks a month. Every dollar goes back into this show and our pro-democracy efforts, including the reporting from Ukraine. Go to patreon.com/Ken Harbaugh. Thanks for the support. With three vets on the line together, we have to talk about Arlington and Trump's utter disrespect for that hallowed ground. And in my opinion, his total inability to understand what actual sacrifice means. How have you guys been talking about that in the Weinstein kitchen?
Well, I was like at breakfast one morning, I asked Amanda, I didn't, know it was possible to get into a fight with Arlington National Cemetery.
Yeah.
What the,
yeah.
Can we, I don't think we can cuss on this show, but what the F, man? Like, this is insane. Like, what kind of world are we in? It's like Biff became president, but they couldn't even write Back to the Future Part 2 this effed up. This is what is happening? Like, and I'm really thankful that one of our preeminent military families, the McCain family, John McCain's son, stood up and talked about this. And it shows that this is not a partisan issue. This is the furthest thing from a partisan issue. This is just a pattern, a continued pattern of his degradation of military families, of Medal of Honor winners, of people who've been injured or lost their lives, in this case, in combat or in war. Like, where's the bottom? Where's this going? Yeah. Like, I thought, our Arlington National Cemetery was one thing where we could separate politics from the daily outrage of the day, but no.
There's also a federal crime.
Yeah.
Which is like, I feel like something we're not even talking about enough when they're like, oh, it's all, he's been persecuted against with all his convictions. And then he's right there on TV committing another federal crime. And it's like not even the most, like one of the things we're talking about, that like you're committing a federal crime to like desecrate some very hallowed ground. And I don't care who wants you there or doesn't. Like, you don't do that, right? We respect our military veterans, respect the places where they're laid to rest, period.
The crazy part about the commission of that crime is that it was happening. They were cutting this video, which is illegal. You can't do a campaign video in Arlington National Cemetery. Even if it weren't illegal, everyone knows that's just gross, but it is illegal. And as they are putting this video together, J.D. Vance is on a stage somewhere berating the media for blowing this out of proportion and actually says it's not as if Donald Trump went to Arlington National Cemetery to make a campaign video. Which he did. He did.
Like gaslighting.
Such gaslighting.
Extreme.
Like, you are not seeing what you think you are seeing right now. That campaign video you just watched is not a campaign video. And you're like, we just watched it. They've done this with January 6th. Yeah. Like, it is a trend. Like, that thing you just watched on TV, you didn't actually see, right? It is ridiculous. And the problem is veterans talk, people talk, right? We know he called us suckers and losers. We know the history with him and the military. A lot of generals know it. A lot of veterans know it. A lot of veterans are talking about it. And one of the biggest swings you saw between 2016 and 2020 was veterans. Big swing in terms of who they voted for, because they do typically vote for a Republican. But a lot of them don't like someone who disrespects them that much. There is a difference with a lot of young male veterans who aren't seeing this, or they're not believing, or they're like going in with the gaslighting. But it is a huge swing with veterans. We do not want to see someone who doesn't respect our veterans and what they've done and the sacrifice and service. And it's not even better, any service, right? Yeah. Donald Trump is a person who cannot understand service to anyone other than himself. He will never and can never understand veterans, but it also means he can never understand teachers. He can never really understand parents. I'm sorry, just because you have a biological child doesn't really mean you're a parent. He is not a parent, right? He cannot understand service to another human being that is not himself.
You're right, though.
Can you
Veterans
imagine Don Jr. reacting to his dad the way Gus Waltz did when Governor Waltz said, "You are my whole world"?
Love.
Yeah.
True, like real affection and love. No, but to Amanda's point, and here's where it's super relevant. Veterans talk. Veterans are civically engaged, actively engaged, and we vote. And both the active duty community and veterans, and we're both Air Force Academy grads, and we keep in touch with. I'm making bubbles on the screen. Sorry, I'm doing thumbs up bubbles. I'm sorry, too much hand motions. We keep in touch with our classmates who are still in the military or our veterans. Deeply conservative. I mean, I'd call right-wing classmates of mine cannot get. They will not support Trump. They've told me. Did not support him in 2020. Will not support him this time. Enough is enough, you know.
But we've got a major episode on that coming out next week. We've got the brains behind that poll on the show. I'm teasing that now, but get ready for it. I'm interviewing Mike Smith from VFRL on Sunday, right before I head out for Ukraine, and we're going to release that episode soon. So we'll get to the bottom of that cratering of support among veterans for Donald Trump. Casey and Amanda, thanks for the inaugural episode of, what are we going to call this? The weekly roundup or coffee with the Weinsteins? You pick. We'll see you back.
Well, if we do it afternoon
at our kitchen,
which is in 1 minute, we'll do wine
live from the suburbs.
Wine with the Weinsteins.
Wine with the Weinsteins. All right.
Whiskey.
Sounds good.
All right.
I will not see you next week. You're going to be flying solo. I will be downrange. But thanks for making this a regular spot.
Yeah, Ken, thank you.
Ken.
And be safe. Be safe. Thank you for what you're doing in Ukraine, and be safe.
You got it. Bye, guys.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.